Okay, so picture this, right? It's Southern California, beautiful February morning, sun's out, birds are singing, and parents are, waving goodbye to their kids as they head off to school.
Sounds idyllic.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Hmm.
But for one family, this, totally normal day turns into an absolute nightmare.
Oh,
Their daughter, 14-year-old Amber Dubois, never makes it to Escondido High. And that's where our deep dive begins today. We're going to be looking into, well, the twists and turns, really, of Amber's disappearance.
yeah, this is one of those stories that, well, just gets under your skin. I mean, it's every parent's worst fear.
Right.
And what makes the Amber Dubois case so, I guess, fascinating, so compelling, is that it's not just about, a missing child. It's about all the ripple effects. It's about the impact this has on her family, the investigators, the whole community, really.
Yeah, definitely. You shared an audio excerpt from the Wondery podcast taken, the Amber Dubois story, with us, and man, it's haunting. But let's set the scene first. So it's February 13th, 2009. Amber, who is, well, she's a quiet girl, loves to read, not really into like the typical teenage scene.
Right.
She's actually excited about getting a lamb for a school science project.
A lamb?
Yeah, a lamb. Anyway, she heads off to Escondido High, and then, well, she vanishes. Like poof, gone.
Just like that.
Yeah, it seems that way. And right from the start, there are these little details that, well, they just add to the whole mystery. Two people, completely separately, report seeing Amber walking that morning. First, she's alone. Then later, someone's walking with her.
And they don't know who this other person is.
Nope. That becomes a, well, kind of a central mystery in the whole investigation. Yeah. It's almost like, a ghost story, this unknown person.
I see.
And then, of course, you have the whole family dynamic. Amber's mother, Carrie, her father, Mo, and her stepfather, Dave, are all, well, you can imagine, trying to deal with this horrific situation. But they've also got their own, complicated relationships to navigate.
Yeah, I can imagine that adds another layer of stress to an already impossible situation.
It does. And almost immediately, the police zeroed in on Dave.
The stepfather. Why him?
Well, he was the last one to see her. And there were a few things he did, or I guess didn't do, that day that raised red flags for the investigators. He didn't go to work. He missed a call from the school.
Ah, I see.
It's easy to see how, with something like this, every little thing gets scrutinized,
Yeah.
overanalyzed. But, I mean, put yourself in Dave's shoes. You're dealing with this horrible disappearance, and everyone is looking at you like you might be involved.
Oh, absolutely. The pressure must have been immense.
Exactly. And the podcast really gets into that. He ends up taking like 8 polygraph tests, constantly being questioned, not just by the police, but by Carrie, too. It really puts a huge strain on their relationship. You can practically feel this suspicion, hanging in the air between them.
Yeah, it's got to be just devastating for everyone. So what happens next?
Well, while everyone is focused on Dave, time is slipping away. Months go by, no new leads, and the hope just starts to fade.
And the family. How are they coping with all this?
It's rough. Carrie actually moves out. She can't handle the thought that Dave might be involved. She talks in the podcast about how she feels like she aged 100 years from the stress. I bet anyone who's ever gone through a long period of worry or anxiety can relate to that feeling, like time is
Yes.
just stretching out forever.
Yeah, it's a feeling of being trapped, almost.
Exactly. And then there's this, well, really sad detail about Amber's little sister, Allison, who was only 7 at the time. She starts going on these nightly walks with her family, determined to find her big sister. It's just heartbreaking.
Oh, wow, that's...
Yeah. So here we are, a family shattered by grief and suspicion, a community on edge, and a young girl who vanished without a trace. It's a mystery and a tragedy with no easy answers.
It sounds like it. And I'm assuming it doesn't end there.
It doesn't. Just when it seems like all hope is lost, something happens, something that changes everything.
Okay, I'm listening. What is it?
A shocking turn of events that throws the whole case wide open, connecting it to another terrible event that will forever be linked to Amber's story.
So last we left off, the Dubois family was, well, stuck. No answers, no Amber, just a whole lot of pain and unanswered questions.
And it's almost a year to the day after Amber disappears that another tragedy hits the community.
Oh no. What happened?
A 17-year-old girl, Chelsea King, she goes missing. She was out for a run.
Oh, how awful.
Yeah, and it's hard not to see the similarities to Amber's case. It's like a terrible echo. This feeling of dread just washes over everyone. But there was one big difference this time.
What's that?
The investigation, it moves a lot faster.
Really?
Yeah, they find DNA evidence that leads them to a suspect pretty quickly, a guy named John Gardner.
John Gardner.
Yeah, and it turns out he's a registered sex offender. He's got this, well, a really disturbing history of violence, especially against women.
Oh, that's just chilling.
It is. And so, of course, everyone starts wondering, could this be connected to Amber's disappearance? Could this John Gardner be responsible for both?
I can't imagine what was going through the minds of Amber's family. Was it hope? Or maybe more like a confirmation of their worst fears?
Right. I mean, on the one hand, there's a chance they might finally get some answers after a year of silence. But on the other hand, it means that what happened to Chelsea might be what happened to Amber.
Hmm.
And that's just, well, it's almost too much to think about.
Absolutely. So, what happens with Gardner? Is he convicted for Chelsea's murder?
Well, it's complicated.
Mhm.
See, to avoid the death penalty, he makes a deal. He agrees to lead the police to Amber's remains.
Wow. That's a tough one. Is it ever right to bargain with a murderer, even if it means giving a family closure? It's a real ethical dilemma.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. And it's something that Carrie Dubois, Amber's mom, she really wrestles with this in the podcast. But even in the face of this unimaginable tragedy, she does something, well, something pretty incredible.
What's that?
She decides to meet with Gardner, face to face.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine. Why would she do that?
In the podcast, she says she needed answers, not just about what happened, but why. She needed to try to understand the mind of the person who took her daughter.
I can understand that. That need to make sense of something so senseless. But still, to sit across from someone like that,
It's tough to even listen to. Hearing Gardner talk about the abduction, how Amber tried to reason with him, the music that was playing in the car as he drove her away,
ugh, that just sends chills down my spine.
it's rough. But amidst all that darkness, there's this, well, this unexpected glimmer of light.
What do you mean?
Carrie, she talks about forgiveness.
Forgiveness for Gardner.
Yeah. And I know it's hard to wrap your head around, right? How do you forgive someone who did something so horrific? But for Carrie, it seemed to be about finding a way to move forward. She didn't want to let Gardner's actions define her life or the life of her younger daughter.
It's an incredible act of strength.
It is. It's about choosing hope, even in the face of such terrible darkness. And I think that's one of the most powerful things we can take away from Amber's story. Even when faced with the worst imaginable pain, we still have the power to choose how we respond, how we define ourselves.
That's a powerful message. So what about the systemic issues we touched upon earlier? The fact that Gardner was a known offender.
Right, that's a whole other layer to this story and something we need to unpack because Gardner's crimes, they didn't happen in a vacuum. We've been talking about this, well, this awful story, the case of Amber Dubois,
It's about grief, yeah.
but it's also about resilience and some, well, some pretty unsettling questions about, about the systems that are supposed to be there to protect us.
It's definitely a case that stays with you. And I think, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's important to think about what we can learn from it all, not just what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about the family, their search for answers,
Yeah.
Carrie's decision to forgive Gardner. But like we mentioned before, there's another side to this. The fact that Gardner was a known offender.
Mm.
There were systemic failures that, well, that allowed him to be free to commit these crimes.
Exactly. And that's a really important point. I mean, Gardner's history of violence against women, that wasn't a secret. He had a record. He was convicted of assaulting a young girl before, but he was still out there. He even violated parole a bunch of times and, well, nothing really happened.
It's scary, It makes you wonder if the systems that are supposed to protect us are actually working. What can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Well, first, we have to admit that there's a problem. We can't just assume everything's fine. We have to look at how we deal with sex offenders, how we keep track of them, how we make sure they aren't falling through the cracks.
It's about accountability,
Right, yeah.
Making sure that both people and the systems are held responsible.
Exactly. And we have to be proactive. We can't wait for another tragedy before we start demanding change. We need stricter laws, better ways to keep track of these guys, and rehab programs that actually work.
And it's not just about laws and police, right? It's also about, well, about changing the culture, making sure these kinds of behaviors aren't tolerated, that victims feel like they can speak up, that communities are doing their part to protect everyone.
Absolutely. It starts with education. We need to be open and honest about things like consent, healthy relationships, how to recognize and report bad behavior. We need to teach kids how to stay safe, and we need to empower people to step in if they see something wrong.
It's about creating a world where everyone feels safe and respected, where these kinds of crimes aren't just, condemned after they happen, but prevented altogether.
Hmm.
We can't bring Amber back, but we can try to make sure other families don't have to go through what hers did.
I think that's a good way to sum it up. It's not enough to just understand what happened. We have to use that knowledge to make things better. It's about taking action, demanding change, and, well, being the change we want to see.
Amber's story is a tragedy, no doubt, but it's also a call to action. It reminds us that we all have a part to play in creating a world where kids can grow up feeling safe and loved.
That's something worth fighting for.
Absolutely. And thanks to everyone for joining us today. If you found this deep dive thought-provoking, be sure to subscribe to the deep dive for more stories and, well, more deep dives into the issues that shape our world. We'll see you next time.